Welcome to my presentation from Death to Doula. My first question to you is, does anyone know why the chicken crossed the road?
I heard that to get to the other side actually died.
Yes, to get to the other side. Yeah, we didn't, my family didn't understand that till, gosh, a few years after my near-death experience. My mom heard it explained to her. She's like, it's actually to get to the other side of life, the death. And it was brilliant. So glad you know that. Welcome. So my journey started basically before I got here, right? All of ours does. But mine really got going in a crazy, tumultuous part of my pubescent life. So when I was 10, I started experiencing interesting, weird, strange symptoms. And it wasn't too bothersome when I was 10, but then I'm also a 10-year-old girl, and that's kind of crazy in its own. And then I started seeing ghosts and started seeing auras and started having all these metaphysical and paranormal experiences. So I have weird symptoms. My body starts moving involuntarily, and that grows into tremors and muscle rigidity, spasticity, nerve pain, anxiety, depression, OCD. So it just is going and escalating, and we're going to doctors, and they don't have a clue. They just throw drugs at me. And these drugs put me in comatose states. They say, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you've got this. Oh, you've got this. And I ended up with a list of 10, 15 disorders. And at the same time at home, I'm seeing ghosts. And I saw an inanimate doll turn its head and look at me with glowing eyes. And this was a generational doll. And it had lost its eyes probably decades before. But in this instance, it had red, glowing eyes. And I was petrified, absolutely terrified. Then it grew from ghost to these entities. And they just felt dark and they felt scary. And they would cross our basement walls. And unbeknownst to me, my sister also saw these entities. And she told my mom, and I told my mom, but we had never told each other. And so my mom's in the background doing research, like, what is going on? I'm raised in a Christian home, and I'm saved by Jesus. And if you're saved by Jesus, nothing can touch you. And so I'm like, why are these things touching me? I should be okay. I should be safe. And my body was betraying me. My environment was betraying me. I felt like my God was betraying me. I'd pray out, I'd call out. Especially as the illness progressed, I became more desperate. And, I was raised, if you just pray hard enough, you'll be saved. And that wasn't happening. So why does the world hate me? Why does my body hate me? Why does my God hate me? And I fell into despair. And it really was a struggle in my teenage years, in my 20s, to remain hopeful and optimistic. I finally did get a diagnosis, and it was Occam's razor. The explanation that covers the most is usually the simplest, right? So this condition called myoclonus dystonia fit all of these symptoms. I wasn't bipolar, I didn't have fibromyalgia, I didn't have MS, I didn't have Parkinson's, I didn't have Tourette's, I didn't have. I had myoclonus dystonia. And with that, I was like, oh my gosh, we have an answer. We have a condition. We know we can do something about it. Alas, that was overly optimistic, as it's very rare and pretty unknown in the community, in the medical industry. And as of August last year, last time I looked into it, it was still about 1 in a million that have this condition. So at this time, by the time I was diagnosed, I had already tried all of the medication that they would try for this disorder, because they were treating symptoms. That's all they knew how to do. They said, it's incurable. We can't cure you. We can try to treat you. It's been unsuccessful, so you're kind of on your own. We do know that alcohol has been known to help. We've done research on this, and we took twins, and they both have myoclonus dystonia. It's a genetic condition. And one of them we gave alcohol, and it helped their symptoms, and it calmed down their symptoms enough that they, were able to kind of live a normal life. So at 18 years old, I was told, well, the medications don't work, but alcohol works, so drink, but be careful. Cool. After 8 years of the world betraying me, having no solutions in the medical industry, and I was given a green key to go drink as much as I want, self-treat myself with alcohol, privately available. And so I did, and at first it was great. It took away the involuntary muscle movements. I would hit things, I'd hit myself, I would throw things. I broke probably a dozen phones, untold amount of dishware, and it stopped my tremors, it stopped my muscle rigidity, and I was able to have a normal-ish life. So I did the, American thing. I bought a house, I went to college, joined the corporate America. And as time went on, more alcohol was needed, but, it was still giving me a life. However, alcohol is also a depressant, and it lowers your energy fields. And I was totally unaware of energy fields or energy bodies. I was just like, oh my gosh, I have relief. For once in, 8-10 years. So as my energy is lowered, either because I don't feel good or because I'm drinking, or I don't feel good because I'm drinking, I still experienced paranormal activity. There were apparitions, and I started astral traveling involuntarily, and ending up in other dimensions where I was chased by these dark creatures. And there was still just that cloud that followed me. That was just, I would try to outrun that cloud, and there's hope over there, but it was chasing me, and it was following me, and I couldn't outrun it. And I tried running thousands of miles. I tried running careers. I tried running from myself. And this comes to when I was 26, and the alcohol had started to have devastating results on my life. I never thought I would live long enough to see the long-term effects of alcohol or alcoholism, and I was like, cool, it's treating the mid-term, the short term. I'm not going to live long enough to see the cause of this. And I ran again, and I tried to stop drinking. So I actually had a period of sobriety, and my condition was rearing its head, and I'm trying to find a job that will suit my situation, and still trying to find other solutions for this disorder. And my mom, who is always a wonderful researcher and has always fought for me and was always by my side, my biggest advocate, would never settle. Early on, we tried Chinese medicine, those nasty tasting herbs. We tried supplements, we tried conventional medicine, Reiki, acupuncture, chiropractic, meditation, mindfulness, hypnosis, just the list goes on and on and on. If there was something that shouted, maybe you can heal, maybe, we tried it. So at 26, she found a spirit release therapist, and she heard that these entities who attach to people can cause crazy rare illnesses. And we thought, maybe this is the solution, this is the answer. And we get started with this therapist, and it's all remote, but she said, you can get a little sick. It's energy work, and you can feel like the flu. When you move energy, you can feel it. And so I thought, all right, well, no big deal. And so we started trying this, and she's in the background. And I have these dark entities attached, multiple, from 16 years, back to when I started seeing these paranormal things in our house as a 10-year-old. And they loved me because I was resilient. I wouldn't give up, but yet my life was full of fear and anger and depression. So I was the perfect host. I was great food. I was fearful. I couldn't sleep. And when I did sleep, my dreams were filled of terrors and nightmares. So I had no rest. So I was just constant food. And so these things are getting pissed, absolutely angry, and we get further and further in, and they're becoming malicious. They are physically attacking me. They're psychologically attacking me. I am getting exhausted. The flu-like symptoms are just exasperated. I can't hold food down. I can't hold water down. I am exhausted. And my mom and I were in prayer. She was in a different state because, of course, I ran. And she was in prayer with me for 72 hours. And at the end of this 72 hours, after 3 weeks of all of this, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. And I tell her, I'm going to try to get some sleep. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I was a chronic insomniac. These things were awful. They were tormenting me physically, psychologically, every which way. And I hung up the phone thinking she needed some sleep. And as soon as I hung up, I surrendered. I couldn't do it anymore. I was physically exhausted. I was mentally exhausted, emotionally, spiritually. All of me was done. And I finally called out to a God. I wasn't sure who, because the God I prayed to before sure didn't answer. But this time, it was different. I didn't call asking for help. I called out saying, I'm done. Like, if you're going to help me, now's the time, because I'm not doing it anymore. And when I surrendered completely with absolutely everything, a wave of peace and serenity just came over me. These demons were ripped from me, ripped from my soul, ripped from my body, ripped from my life. And it was like 1,000 whips had been stopped. Shouts and screams from 100 stadiums had been silenced. The weight of 100 boulders had been lifted. I felt peace and serenity for the first time in my whole life. And it was amazing. And I would have been happy had it stopped there. But of course it didn't. I heard a big booming voice ask, "Are you ready?" I didn't hesitate for a second to say yes. Something answered my prayer. Something happened. Yes. And just like that, I was detached from my body. I was no longer aware of being a human. I was no longer aware of this earth realm. And I was in nothingness. I was in nowhere. I was in blackness. But in this blackness, in this nothingness, in this nowhereness was everything. It was pure energy, pure love. I met God. I met the Creator. I met the thing that saved me. And it was nothing but pure love and energy. And I realized I was home. And when I realized I was home, I still didn't understand I was detached from my body, or I didn't know about Earth, but my conscious knew something had changed. And in my conscious thought, I'm just a conscious body, energy body. I thought, am I dead? And out of the darkness appear 3 monks. And they're sitting cross-legged, and they float on by, and they give me a laughing grin. They don't say a word, but they're laughing in their smile, all 3 of them, as if to say, if you only knew. I thought, well, that's curious. All right, doesn't really answer my question. And they disappear back into the blackness, and I end up in a beautiful tunnel filled with ones and zeros. My soul's being downloaded with information of the universe. Then I end up in a white room filled with more numbers, and I throw them up in the air and exclaim, "No wonder you love creating," because the universe, I realized, was created in math. And I had this childlike joy. And then I got to hang out with some other beings in a waiting room. It wasn't really a waiting room. It was a place reminiscent of Earth. It had very earthly vibes. Once again, wasn't aware of Earth. I didn't remember it. But there were other beings there. And I couldn't tell if they'd ever had a human experience. I didn't know I didn't know what a human was. So I didn't know where they came from or where they're going, but we were all together. And our thoughts instantly created reality. I saw some beings sliding down trees and snow, and I thought, I don't think I like snow. Instantly, it turned to lush green trees, and then I'm sliding down the trees. At one point, other beings are working on a machine with a huge flame, and I just have the thought, if I get too close, will I melt? And instantly I was there, and I melted. Then I was a puddle of eyeballs, and I thought, I wonder if anyone will put me back together. Just like that, put me back together. So no words were ever spoken. No thoughts were ever heard, but thoughts instantly created. And now I am so thankful for the time lapse that we have here. Our thoughts still create our reality, but we have such a huge time that we can change our thoughts and change the trajectory of what we are creating. There, it was instantaneous. But here, if you think, oh, I wonder if that tractor will run me over, and you're there getting run over, you're going to expire on the spot. Where we have time to be like, I wonder if that tractor would run me over. Maybe I'll walk that way. We have this blessing of time here, where time doesn't exist on that side. So everyone was communicating as one, without words, without thoughts, not thoughts that you heard. Then I end up in a room, and a scroll is unraveled in front of me with beautiful golden script. My ego comes back and says, you're showing this to a human. Pretty inconvenient time to remember I was human. In that moment, the scroll rolled up and I was snapped back into my body. After this, I came back with medical intuition. I came back being able to hear people's thoughts. And it was terrifying. I had just gone from all these negative paranormal experiences to this overwhelmingly, I knew they could be positive, but I didn't know how to utilize them. And it was as if I was stuffed into a sausage casing. I didn't understand why I'd gone from hell on earth to this place of love, just to be back in this dense, hateful world. And while I was struggling in this confusion and this overwhelm, I was in a new type of survival mode. I didn't realize I had no more symptoms of myoclonus dystonia. They had ceased. And it took me through a suicide attempt to try to get back to this place. I didn't have tools. I tried to speak to other people that tried to help me integrate, and I just couldn't. I knew where home was. I wanted to be there. I longed for it. And I tried to get there, took drastic measures that were unsuccessful. I realized, okay, I'm meant to be here. What does that mean? Only about a year later did things kind of start to settle down, and I went back to my career and went back to my old thoughts, my old identity, my old feelings, my old actions. But in that was my old illness. So as soon as I started to realize that I'd been cured from this amazing experience, did it creep back in. And this illness was present all day, every day. So for it to be gone for 18 months, it was absolutely a miracle. But it came back. And I was like, well, what's that about? Okay, so now I've got this hellish experience. I go to this place of love. I come back. I deal with all that trauma. And then my condition comes back just to throw it. Like, what is the point? And, go down this rabbit hole, and I end up not being able to hardly walk anymore. My tremors had gotten so bad I couldn't type, couldn't text, couldn't do my eyeliner, couldn't put on earrings, couldn't button up my pants, my shirts, couldn't tie my shoes. I tremored so bad. I've got videos. I was very reluctant to let my family take videos of me because I was embarrassed. And it was embarrassing. But nowadays I'm so thankful. And they are on my website. And I am just a disaster. I'm flopping around like a fish, and I'm hitting things, and I'm tremoring. And most of the time I've got a smile on my face, but other times it's already after an hour or two of these episodes, I'm exhausted. So I get brain surgery. And it's a relatively new experimental procedure for this illness that is, rare and understudied. And it was pretty successful. I was told it came with a warning. Myoclonus dystonia is cunning. It'll relearn how to mess up your brain. It'll go around the surgery. It'll learn. It'll adapt. I said, okay, but it's giving me relief right now. A year later, I needed emergency programming, so it's a deep brain stimulator. I've got a computer battery in my chest. I've got leads into my brain, and I needed to go in for an emergency programming just a year after surgery. I was going downhill. I was starting to have more episodes again, more rigidity, more pain, and there's only one doctor on this half of the U.S. that programs for this condition. And so I went, and while my myoclonus dystonia was relatively taken care of, I still had a program written out of survival mode. So when I was in survival, what I was told, you can drink if it helps, and it did help. So I created that program. I was in survival. I was just trying to live the most normal life I could. So I hated that I created alcoholism for myself out of this state of survival for a long time. And I was like, you know what? The doctors are taking care of my body. I finally have a good medical team. I finally know that I have people that know what they're doing. They can take care of my physical body. I'm gonna go work on my subconscious. I'm gonna go work on my internal self. I finally have kind of motivation to do it. And I found out about a meditation retreat. So I had tried meditation when I was younger. I only knew really about hypnosis and mindfulness meditation. And mindfulness was helpful for times of trauma. I'd also, due to my illness, I had low self-confidence, low self-worth, low self-esteem. So of course I attracted what I thought I deserved. And I had horrible relationships, abusive. I had sexual abuse and sexual assaults. And every time something happened, I would go and I would figure out how to cut that. I didn't need that trauma on top of the trauma my body was causing me. So I did hypnosis, I did EMDR, I did talk therapy, group therapy, art therapy. I did a ton of things to constantly cut these ties of trauma in my life. And when I got to this meditation retreat, it was a different type of meditation than I was ever used to. And it was only 2 weeks before the retreat did I really start studying the material and studying the science behind it and how to do it. And I read a book and I took a course or a couple courses, and I get to this retreat. And in the second day, after, hard, like I go at things very hard. And so 2 weeks were just full of morning to night of me studying and researching how to do this. So on the second day, I get into a wonderful meditative state. And I see my heart and my brain I'm in nowhere. I get back to the place of my near-death experience without dying this time. And I'm in this place of energy. And I see my heart and my brain kind of out in nothingness. And parts of my near-death tunnel come and circulate in it. And I understand that it's rewiring my brain. And it's rewiring my brain for both my subconscious program I created on survival with alcohol, as well as rewiring my actual physical brain for myoclonus dystonia. And the next day, I knew I could turn off my stimulator that I wanted for 12 years. I fought so hard to get this thing. And here I am at this meditation retreat with being told I could shut it off. And it's like, well, what is that all about? So I did shut it off. And in a little adjustment, I could tell almost instantly. I could feel little twitches, little, tightness. My face could twitch. So I could feel within a few minutes with just a tiny adjustment. So to shut it off completely was a huge leap of faith. And so I shut it off and I wait. Nothing happens. Seconds turn to minutes, turn to weeks, turn to months. It keeps going. And in this self-reflection and in this newfound meditation style, I realized why everything happened the way it happened, the reason it happened. So I was able to heal from my condition because it was a miraculous healing. That was the gift of my near-death experience, but I didn't have the language to continue that healing. And so when I went back to my old identity, my old thoughts, my old actions, my old feelings, what laid in my old identity was my old illness. And we are run on 95% subconscious programs in this human experience, especially by the time we're 35. They're pretty ingrained. And if you are not constantly working on changing and creating your future, you're defaulting. It's just super easy. It's autopilot, it's auto drive, and you default. So I've learned that it had to come back so that I can learn how to heal myself, how to teach other people how to heal themselves, and most importantly, how to sustain it. So other people, especially in history and religions and cultures, we have these master healers. And they'll often tell people that they have healed to change their ways, to sin no more, change their thoughts, change their actions, change their identity. And when I say change your identity, it's not changing who you are as a core. It's not changing your soul, but it's changing how you react. It's changing how you think, how you interpret your soul's language into your physical realm. It's how to create with the unlimited possibilities of the universe into your 3D reality. So that is why I became a spiritual doula. The death doula is kind of more of a selfish reason. I am so excited because I know where people are going. Not maybe the exact dimension, the exact place, the exact heaven, but I know what they will feel. And I know about the peace and the love and the serenity that they will experience on that side. So I instantly jumped into hospice. The year after I kind of got reintegrated, I jumped into volunteering for hospice. And I volunteered for 2 years. And my soul was so happy and so honored that I get to help people transition and authentically hold this excitement for them. Only recently did I understand exactly how to say it. Kathy McDaniel, she said a lot of us near-deathers love to go to volunteer in hospice because it's selfish. We're so excited to be close to that realm again. So I pursued a path as a death and spiritual doula. I help people transition from this life into the next. Just like a birth doula helps transition life into this world, I help with the transition out. But I love the added spiritual doula, where if you're not ready to go and you have chronic illness and you are sick and tired, I can help you change that. I have helped people change with mast cell, COPD, asthma, anxiety, depression, chronic illness, or chronic, they're all chronic illnesses, chronic migraines, toxic mold, Parkinson's. I mean, the list has gone on. And that's just the people I've helped. But I've seen people around the world heal from anything and everything. So nothing is off limits, whether it's neurological, psychological, environmental, traumatic. All of these things I have seen people heal from. I've seen people get out of wheelchairs. And I was like, well, are they plants? But then I know them. And I just recently told my story, and someone came out and said, I'd love to share mine with you. I said, I'd love to hear it. And he told me about his MS story. How you could see on his scans the scarring and the myelin sheaths that had deteriorated. And when he went, after he changed his life, he went back and the doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, but I've never seen anything like this. The scarring had gone away and his symptoms had gone away. And he's absolutely terrified that I don't want to share it because what if it comes back? I said, well, are you going to go back to your old way of life? No? Then why would it come back? So that is how my near-death experience and my lifetime of paranormal, metaphysical, and chronic illness led me into my soul's path, and I really stepped into my soul's purpose of becoming a death and spiritual doula, helping people transition out of this life, and of course, breaking free of chronic illness. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them. No? Okay. If you do have a chronic illness that you would like to learn how to break free, I do have a free healing strategy call. We are all unique individuals, and it takes a unique approach to each person. So I'm giving away a raffle if you sign up for a free strategy call, or if you have questions about your life's purpose or some spiritual questions, NDE related, or other words, I also have one-on-one co-creation support. So if you sign up for either one, you get entered into win this lovely holistic basket. It's got 4 different books, a journal, a bee hotel, a bee reusable food savers, a bath self-care kit, and some other fun holistic items in there too. So of course, feel free to reach out to me. My booth is located on the back wall over there, Brionic, and it's got a big B. There's a theme. So thank you so much for coming, and let me know if you have any questions later on. Of course.